Welcome to Metal Matters, a Gimme Radio podcast. I'm your host, Mike Hill, and I'll be leading you on this adventure. We'll be getting into deep discussions about classic records, profiles on up-and-coming bands, and interviews with your favorite artists. You can check out new episodes every week, so be sure to subscribe and never miss out. This week, please welcome my good friend Diane Farris to the Metal Matters fold. She's a friend of mine, known her for many years. She's also a fellow Gimme Radio DJ, and you can check out her show Lifer on Gimme Radio, streaming or via the app. We're going to be doing a classic records episode, and we're talking about Phobos by Voivod. Voivod is a band that I've been fascinated with for most of my life. You know, they've been grinding it out since the early 80s. Changed a bunch, had a bunch of different lineups over the years. And I can't really say that anyone sounds like Voivod. And that's one of the reasons why they've been a fascination of mine. Now, Phobos, to me, stands out as possibly the most unique record by a unique band. And that's why we're going to be talking about it this week. I'd like to thank everyone for checking out the show. Definitely keep sharing it. You know, I can see the numbers, and I see that you guys are doing what I asked. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your friends. Tell them about it. You can follow me on Instagram at the alleged Mike Hill. And yeah, so here we go.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, this
I'm
is
very
fun.
Excited.
Yeah, we've known each other for quite a while at this point.
Yes.
You know, and now we're both fellow DJs on the Gimme Radio platform.
Fabulous. I love Gimme Radio. I really do.
And when did your show air?
I am on, Lifer is on Mondays at 1 p.m. That's Eastern time. And the replay is 11 p.m. on Friday nights, Eastern time.
We used to be sort of like right in this, me, you, and Danny Loker.
Yeah.
Were like sandwiched on Fridays, I remember.
Yes.
At one point.
Yeah. And then I needed to switch my show for some projects I'm undertaking. So, but it was a good neighborhood to be in.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What you know, generally, like, is there a theme on your show? Like, do you just kind of pull from different places, or
out of my ass?
Okay.
I really, for me, Lifer is just as a description of who I am in music. It's like, you know, I grew up in rock, in album-oriented rock, hard rock, you know, some metal, and I've just taken that and really always just looked at it and cherished it and just sucked the life out of it in terms of knowing it and, you know, owning the records and going to the shows and all that. And I've always really supported, as I learned about underground music, more and more things that were underground, I think because I felt like music needed help, or that the world needed that. And so I am a lifer, and my tastes vary for sure. And in some ways, it's almost because I've got like this sort of like musical ADHD thing. Like I can listen to full albums, but I quite often choose not to, you know. And I really like to mix it up. And I did terrestrial radio for decades, and that was a free form thing too. So I also put in a lot more of just sort of like regular rock and things that I probably wouldn't play on my Gimme show. But Lifer is about my dedication to music.
Yeah, and also you, like you're saying, you bring all this experience, and you're an actual broadcasting professional.
In a way,
I would say that you are.
In a way, thank you.
And we had a discussion one time when I was on. You interviewed me on WFMU, your former home, where you accused me of being an expert in making music.
I remember how angry you were because I remember that so well, yeah. and I think so. I probably used my words wrong, and I certainly would never have meant that you, and the fact that you said now in this day and age, because this is years ago, at least, the fact that you used the word accuse me means that you definitely took it wrong, because I meant it as an achievement and maybe being able to look at your achievements. And of course, there's always somewhere to go.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not like you're sitting on your laurels. And I'm so glad you brought that up, though, because I always felt like he really was arguing with me on that point. And I felt like maybe I got a little intimidated when you started to argue, so I couldn't quite relax into getting you to understand what I meant, which was just really like props. And I've seen you grow and play. I saw, you Anodyne played at FMU.
Yep, that was one of the finest moments of my whole life, was playing on WFMU on the Pat Duncan show.
Yeah.
That was like a real cool time for me.
And I've seen you really, like Tombs, I think, has really morphed a lot too. And you're at the very center of that. So I would never never accuse you of just sort of being I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was about sort of like just being more comfortable and really knowing your instrument better and knowing what you want. And there's certainly a better way to say it than expert. And I'm sorry you took offense to the word
I wasn't
expert.
really offended by it, but I guess what I was
glad we cleared the air.
But right now I was going to turn the tables on you and
what
say
am I
that
an expert at?
and say that you have put in your 10,000 hours of broadcasting time.
Okay.
And that I think that you're an expert at the art of broadcasting and being on the air and putting together musical playlists and that. And there's definitely an art to it, because I'm a novice at that stuff on Gimme Radio.
Oh, it's so much fun though, isn't it?
It's a lot of fun, but I don't know if I do a good job or not. Like, I don't know if there's people listen to my show and they're like, oh man, I had a great time doing this. This makes sense. I think that sometimes there's a flow and a certain technique that you do to put these things together, and I'm still learning that. And like you're like, oh yeah, I pull it from my ass, but also it's like you have been executing this work for many, many hours for a long time.
Yes, well,
and there's a craft to just like everything else, there's a craft to it. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm accusing you of being an expert at that.
Okay, I'll take that. That's so funny, because I took that wrong and you took it wrong years ago. Because when you said accusing me, I'm like, oh my God, he's calling me out on the carpet. But you were actually going to turn the tables on me, which is actually very nice. Thank you.
No, I was just,
Yeah.
But speaking of the underground and the subject of today's episode, Voivod.
Yay!
I was just talking about this earlier today about how, Voivod was around. They formed in 1982.
Yes.
Okay. So they were part of that original, thrash, speed metal world.
Yes.
Populated by Metallica, the likes of Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth.
Metal Massacre.
That whole movement.
Yes.
And they also drew from similar, influences: new wave British heavy metal, hardcore punk, classic rock, or hard rock. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yet, for some reason, Voivod never really experienced the same level of mainstream success as any of those bands. They sort of remained in the underground.
That is true. Forever. I know they just won a Juno Award, right? It's like a Canadian Grammy,
yes.
I guess. And it's been a really long time. They've been together for over 30 years.
Yeah.
So even though they just won a Grammy, that's really a long time. I don't know what clearly they're very different. And I think that I've met people over the years who are like, yeah, I just don't get Voivod. And I don't get that. Right. So I love them from the moment I heard them. And they have certainly changed in a lot of ways, but sonically, there is something that is similar all the way through. And they're not traditional in the metal, world. And maybe that's it. And you know what? I've never been good at being able to choose a band who's going to be big. Never. If I like your band, that kind of sucks for you, because I just I've never been able to be like, oh, this band's gonna be number one. I just like what I like. But you're right about that. It's like a lot of those bands from back then did really, do well and were at the right place at the right time. And I don't think that they were in the wrong place, but I don't really know how to investigate that.
Yeah, I mean they did have a record on a major. They're like Nothing Face came out on MCA.
MCA,
and
yeah.
The Astronomy Domine video got some pretty good rotation on Headbangers Ball at the time.
Oh, okay.
I remember seeing it on Headbangers Ball, and I'm like, oh yeah, and that was like, I'd been into the band for a while at that time, but it was like they still were like the weird band on. You would get the hair metal bands, and then later in the show you'd see like the Cro-Mags, We Gotta Know.
Right.
You might check this video out. You know what I mean? You'll see like the Prong Beg to Differ video.
Okay, yeah.
And that's the thing. I always likened Voivod and Prong in some ways, because Prong was a band, in my opinion, that was, they weren't like the easiest band to listen to.
Right.
Right. Yet somehow that success, they were able to capitalize on that, where it always seemed to sort of elude Voivod in the bigger picture, And I don't know. That's always kind of endeared Voivod to me, because it's almost like they just kept plugging away. They kept changing. I mean, the original lineup, we had, Michel Langevin, away, drums, artwork, image, visual context of the band.
Exactly. The story.
Piggy, a.k.a. Denis D'Amour, the original guitar player.
Yes.
Blackie, Jean-Yves Thiraud. Mm-hmm. Bass. Snake, Denis Bélanger on vocals. And that's the original lineup. But this record had a different lineup. It was a 3-piece lineup.
Yes, with Eric Farris, who is Canadian, except he doesn't have a French-Canadian name. So I'm not sure if he's from
like Toronto
that
or
same.
something
Yeah,
like
I don't
that.
know if he's from the same area, because they were up. The original members were from like way up
Quebec.
Yeah, but
some small town in Quebec.
Way further, like outskirts, kind of. And Away had told me that he was friends with Piggy, I believe, because I got the chance to interview him years ago at South by Southwest, many years ago. I that interview's around somewhere. I'll have to find it and maybe try to, augment it and get it done.
You have a podcast too.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that'd be a perfect thing to repost on your podcast.
That's very true. Yeah. I have to find it, because it's a pretty long interview. It's probably one of my longer ones, of course, because I'm the Voivod gal. Mm-hmm. But so he told me that, if I remember correctly, that he and Piggy were friends, and Piggy started showing Blackie things on bass, and that Blackie was a really quick learner, but Away really didn't know how to drum. And Away took a year and said, I'm going to join the band in a year. And literally took a year and practiced. And then was like, okay, I'm ready. Like, and the things that they did to make Voivod are like remarkable. Like, what kid does that? Like, okay, I'm just going to learn for a year. Like, basically close the garage door and, do whatever else he did in his life. But really, like, become a drummer in a year and then be like, okay, I'm ready.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really, really is. So Eric Farris is Canadian, but I'm guessing that he's from another province. Yeah, probably. And that was a really weird time, right, for Voivod. Like, so Eric Farris was on Negatron and he was on Phobos.
Right.
And before that, there was Angel Rat and then Outer Limits. And I'm not positive, but I think that Blackie may not have played on Outer Limits. Like, I think that they were sort of a 3-piece, and maybe Piggy did the bass on that record. I'm not positive. So they were really in flux for more than just those 2 records. And I'm saying in flux because we know how the story goes, and Snake comes back, and and all that, but that was really the beginning of a period for them where they did really go in flux. And then and if you really go out another 10 years or 8 years or 7 years from Phobos, Piggy passes away in 2005, and so then they're still trying to figure things out, and they had Jason Newsted before that, and so it was sort of like a rocky road that was starting with the advent of Voivod with Eric Farris. And I really like Negatron, and I really like Phobos. And I think that Phobos is probably Voivod's darkest record.
I'll have to agree with that. And I remember that period of those 3 albums, The Outer Limits, Angel Rat, Negatron, that's when I kind of like drifted away from the band because I really loved, like, Dimension Atros was like probably prior to that, my favorite record, then Nothing Face, and then, War and Pain, Roar, Killing Technology. Those are all lumped in there as like great records. Definitely there's little differences there. There's like some of those records have more of a thrash feel. Some have almost like a hardcore like feel.
Yes.
And then when Dimension Atros came out, that was like,
oh, that's the perfect record.
That was like the beginning of them expanding into this other realm.
Yes.
And you can see like the progressive, like the King Crimson Yes worship. I mean, that's what I see.
Yes,
I don't know if that's true
absolutely.
or not.
I agree. I do agree.
Yeah, and actually, there's the King Crimson album. Yes, the King Crimson album, Red. To me, sounds like a Voivod record.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it probably goes the other way around.
Yeah.
But
well, and then Phobos. Is it Phobos or they cover 21st Century Schizophrenic
yeah, that's
Man?
on the European, like, sort of a special version.
Okay.
Came out in
Yeah.
Europe. Yeah.
And out of all of their covers, that's my favorite Voivod cover version.
It's a toss-up with that and Astronomy Domine, because, like, that Pink Floyd track is one of my favorite Pink Floyd songs, too.
Oh, okay.
And so they're...
And they play that for Piggy at the end of every show.
Yeah.
So it has this whole just beautiful, uplifting vibe. Like it really, really does. Yeah.
So when I didn't really like Negatron at the time, but I revisited that today, actually, this morning.
Oh, okay.
Trying to get into the vibe for the show.
Yeah.
I've been listening to Phobos quite a bit. Always, I love that. It's one of my favorite records by Voivod. And I'm like, you know what? Let me check out Negatron again, because I know I didn't really like it at the time.
And what changed for you?
I quite enjoyed it this morning when I listened to it.
Yeah.
And there's a very heavy Godflesh, industrial
there is.
like feel to it. And I think in 1995, when that record came out, that wasn't really the kind of thing I was into. And I think that, I put it on and I'm like, oh, this is like some like industrial type of thing. And
Right. Yeah.
it didn't really gel. And then a few years later is when I got into more music like that.
And that was also the CD era.
Yeah.
Like I have these records on CD only. And Negatron was like this whole like 3D thing. Like it had a video thing and all that. And Away started to do his artwork digitally.
Yes.
Like that big picture of the ant, and you can see like the rastering, and it's kind of. I think that actually Nothing Face was digital, but it was more Away's style, and there was something that maybe it was digitized. But Negatron definitely like it's like, wow, he's trying some like I didn't even know the name of a program to suggest. But he's like doing his thing that way, and there was a lot of different things that they were trying.
I have to give him props for trying to do something new.
Yeah.
But I have to also say that the outcome maybe wasn't the best.
Yeah, it was a little clumsy.
It was a little clumsy looking.
Yeah,
definitely.
and I don't know what the state of digital art was at that time either.
Yeah, I mean, this is like
because there's a learning curve for everything.
Yeah.
And
it looks dated. I guess that's what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
Is that the art itself looks very dated. It looks like something that came out in the early 90s. Because I can even go back to other records. Like, you remember Allied Recordings?
Yeah.
Yeah. That layout that they have for all those discographies and compilations they put out are like, that looks like something that came out. Like that style, like the way the font that they use is very much like a dated look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I guess that's similar to like this digital artwork that Away was doing in that era, because the stuff previous to that was what really drew me into the band. Like when I first started seeing their records, and now Diane and I are older than a lot of you people out there, so we experienced the 80s firsthand.
Yes.
And
I saw Voivod at the World War III Fest in Canada. It was Voivod, Nasty Savage, Celtic Frost, Destruction, and Possessed.
Wow.
Yeah.
What year was that again?
I think it was 85.
Okay. So that was still...
I still have my T-shirt from that.
That was before Cold Lake, right? With
Celtic.
Yeah, that was a while
Yes, it was.
That,
and I saw Tom Warrior sitting in a McDonald's
really?
alone. alone. He was not eating anything, but I walked by and I was just like, oh my God, Tom Warrior sitting there. Like it was, yeah. And not to go completely off track, but the night before the festival started, and it was a one day, 5 bands, but it was still those 5 bands.
Yes.
DOA was playing. And I, of course, obviously know my hardcore. And so I went to go see them, and I had all my metal friends. Nobody would go with me, and I just went alone to this gig. And Martin Ain was at the show.
Oh wow!
And I went up to him, and I was like, "I know who you are. Like you're hiding out here." And he was just like, "Oh well, whatever." And I didn't talk to him for very long, but he was at the gig, and it was at an upstairs club. And at the end of the night, I came walking down the steps, and there was a record store across the street burning to the ground. And I stood there with Martin, and we were just watching it, and you could see like the posters like getting set on fire, like and it. I remember looking and not being upset because it was sort of like a pop record store. Like it wasn't like there was like the first Exciter record melting or anything like that, But it was still like. Oh my God! It was a very surreal, and he and I stood there and just talked about it, and just like, oh my God, look at that thing melting and all that. It was so crazy, but so it was a great weekend.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Phobos for me, that's what got me back to pay attention to the band again because it was so dark.
Wow! It really was.
And it's funny how that record came into my possession because. All right, 1997, I was living in Boston, and I was living in this house, and it was like a bunch of degenerate like dudes and bands and me and pit bulls and stuff like that. And I remember Aaron Turner and the Hydra Head house was like right up the street from us, and they were friends of ours. And Jeff Caxide, their bass player, we hung out a lot. One day I came home. I was working at the Newbury Comics warehouse, and one day I came home from work, and I found this Voivod CD was just on the coffee table, just there. Now that might sound odd to some people, but that happened all the time in our apartment.
If you live in a music house, there's
like one day I found the Cave-In Crossbearer 7-inch underneath the couch. Like I was like looking for a VHS tape, and I was like, "Where's this VHS?" I was like, "It was like the Event Horizon VHS that we rented and didn't return.
Oh,
and we just kept it, right?"
Yeah.
So I'm like, I want to watch Event Horizon. So I'm like looking around for it. I go under the couch and I pull out this record. I'm like, what's this band? Cave-In, Crossbearer. And I just tossed it to the side, I'm like, never heard of these guys.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And I hung on to that 7-inch and I still have it.
Oh, cool.
But that's how this Phobos record showed up on the coffee table one day. There's like a promo maybe. Because downstairs was a record label that was like a guy was running out of his house. And they released records by, Jejune and Piebald and all these other types of bands that, pretty cool bands. And I'm like, oh man, I remember I really used to like these guys, let me put this on. So it was night, getting to be nighttime, and I went into my room and I put it in my CD player. And I was like, from the beginning, very, very beginning of that record, I was like, whoa, this is not like Negatron at all.
Yeah.
And at that particular time, this is 97, so it was on the heels of me discovering, like, not so much discovering, but really paying attention to, like, Through Silver and Blood by Neurosis and the more expansive forms of metal and hardcore, like stuff that was more thinking, more thinking involved. Like a couple years before that, I was getting into the Swans. And around that time, I was really getting the Godflesh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I always thought of Voivod as like a metal band, like thrash, speed metal. Like, even though like, Dimension, Atros was like a progressive record.
Yeah.
It was still like a metal type thing.
Yes.
And this record to me was like, had this like psychedelic, like darkness to it. This like very atmospheric. Like there's like very cool, good playing on there, but it was more about feel, what I mean? And it was more about vibe. And I remember that being like this constant rotation for like the next couple months after I found that record.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah. And I still have the CD because it's like,
no
one else wanted it because all the guys I lived with were meatheads and they were just like, they wanted like Madball records and stuff,
right.
which are a great band, but like, I was the guy who
It's a
listened to
different
the
vibe.
weird stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember just being like so stoked about this record, and not too many other people were really digging it. You know, there was like my little enclave of friends. We all dug it. You know, Jeff, Cackside and Turner and those guys. But like, it wasn't something that was in the conversation with a lot of other people.
Right.
You know? So that was like, and ever since then, that's been like the oddball, dark horse record by this band. And I don't think any of their other records really sound like this one.
I agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree. So for me, and this is going to sound, I don't know how it sounds, and I think it's really Snake. And although I would say that Piggy's playing defined the band, when I heard, because I thought Negatron, I thought that Eric Farris was trying to be Snake a little bit. I think he was sort of not doing what was easy for him. I think he was trying other things, and they were trying a lot of stuff. I felt that Phobos was really more straight ahead, and that Eric was really, I mean, he has such a harsh, abrasive, like his delivery is brutal.
Yeah.
And Snake really is like a lovely voice.
Yeah.
Like, and what's behind Snake, when you've got Piggy and Blackie playing the way they play and playing off of each other the way they did in like all of those first early records, you can get away with kind of like a lighter singer and still have a heavy album.
Yep.
And Phobos took, so Eric Forrest, and I don't know, I would love to have known what the conversations were with the band in there, because this is the second record that he's with them.
And his last record. Too.
Yes, and his last record,
Yeah.
right? So, did he really say, like, listen, I'm not going to try to do this, like, sing-songy thing, because it didn't work, and it sort of sounded weird on a couple tracks on Negatron, like, and I really have this harsh vocal, and to see where it goes, and I, like, all of the Voivod records bring me joy because there's like a brightness to them. And there is no brightness to Phobos whatsoever. And if anything, it's confrontational.
Yeah, it's creepy too.
It's caustic. There's like Bacteria is such a creepy song. And although I have to say, I think it's on the track Phobos. There's a part where he screams, and it sounds just like Sam Kinison, like just like like that. And I'm just like, oh my god. And I know it wasn't supposed to be funny, and it wasn't quite the same way that Sam Kinison used to do it, but I was just like, oh, like, and I can't not remember that. But it's a very cold record.
Yeah.
The record has a lot of reverb on it, and it's not made the way a lot of the typical Voivod records were. And typical, I mean, if you go from War and Pain to Outer Limits, nothing is typical between the two of those. But I feel like their dynamics have always been played with and looked at really carefully. And I feel like Phobos was just kind of like, like there was a little bit of a vacuum, like, we don't know what to do with this, and we're just going to leave it for you. And it's such a cold record, and it's a great record. Like, I'm not saying, like, when I say the thing about Joy, it's like there's just this high end that Snake can do, and he's sometimes goofy when he sings, and la la la, like almost like a Broadway thing.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
But with their instrumentation, like, it's still always, really right on point, and they're just so precise. And Phobos doesn't have that, so there's no like light relief.
Nope.
And so that record just starts hitting you and hits you and hits you more and hits you again and hits you until it fucking pushes you off a cliff. Like,
yeah, and just production wise on the previous records, they always kind of stayed within the rules, like with production. You know what I mean, like just compressed drums, like not a whole lot of effects.
The drums sound very different on Phobos.
Yeah, they do sound a lot different. The vocals were like just your basic stuff going on. You know what I mean? And I guess like for me at that particular juncture in my life, like I knew Keith from Rorschach was really into Voivod too.
Yes,
It's like one of his favorite bands.
You can hear that in his guitar playing.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And that is like what contextualized some of, like within the hardcore context, right? Voivod fit because of Rorschach.
Oh, Rorschach!
You know what I mean?
Listen to the Descendants.
Yeah, and
Stefan
even
Edgerton.
De Kreutzen,
Of
I think,
course.
sounds a lot like
Oh my
Voivod.
God! Yeah, what Brian did and De Kreutzen, like
Yeah.
those 4 bands, and I know that they all know of each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I guarantee it. And it's just that sort of high,
Angular guitar, like
like very dissonant. But then
Yeah.
they have that. They sort of top it with that, like bing, bing, bing,
Yep.
like intonation and
Yeah.
whatever. I don't play guitar, so I'm probably saying the wrong words. But
then like, so there was like this rule set, like me personally coming out of this world of hardcore punk and metal, underground metal, where it's like, okay, we go in there, we make a record in 2 days, we only have this amount of time, so we're just gonna like keep it raw and basic, And a lot of I think the older Voivod records are raw and basic.
Yes.
They just like, we get in there, bang it out. But then like when I heard Phobos, and then prior to that I heard Through Silver and Blood by Neurosis, a couple of years before that, I was like, oh, well, this is allowed? Like this type of thing is allowed in this type of music.
yes,
You can put layers of stuff, you can have reverb on and weird effects. You can make, and I'm sure this record wasn't made on some massive budget either.
Right.
But you can be creative within the production of a record. And for me, in 1997 when I heard this, for me to like put my arms around something like that, I was like, wow, this is like a new thought pattern for me. And it comes from this record of like, I'm like, oh wow, look at the stuff they're doing with the vocals. This is like I didn't think it was allowed in this type of music to do that. You know what I mean? I thought like you had to like play by the rules and like you couldn't do these kinds of things. Like this is like for like Pink Floyd or bands like that. you
Right.
know? And that allowed me to really open up my mind to doing more forward-thinking stuff within my own music.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
great.
And that's
Oh,
what
that's
this record is
great.
like.
Yeah.
That's why this one for me.
Wow.
And like you were saying, it's a dark record. It explores like very dark places.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
The atmosphere on it
And
too.
places really that I don't feel that Voivod had ever gone.
No.
And having however many records behind them, like 8 records behind them or whatever it was,
This
like
is their 9th album.
yeah. So there's like really, it's new ground for them, and I find it their scariest record by far.
Yeah, definitely. So just to run through some of the particulars. That's as I just mentioned, it's their 9th studio album. The release date was August 12th, 1997.
Okay.
Recorded March through April of 97, which I found
That's pretty quick.
that's like they recorded it
Yeah.
and just threw it out and it came out.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it on slip disc?
It was on yes, it
yeah.
was on in the US it was on slip disc, and I guess in the rest of the world it was on Hypnotic.
Okay.
They recorded at Signal to Noise in Toronto, Ontario. Production credits include Rob Sanzo, producer mixer, James Cavalluzzo, mixing, and Brett Zihali, mastering. Okay, personnel, we kind of touched on this, but Eric Forrest, bass and vocals. This was his second and last record with Voivod. Piggy, guitar, Away, drums, electronics, and of course, the significant contribution of artwork and art direction for the band. Always.
Yeah.
And then that's a huge component of what Voivod is about, is the visual presentation of their music. I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a couple of like additional musicians on this record too. There's a lot of other people that performed on it.
Okay. I don't know if I know that.
So the U.S. version had 11 tracks. It had Catalepsy 1, Rise, Mercury, Phobos, Bacteria, Temps Mort, which means, in French, that means time out, like taking a break.
I thought it meant dead time.
Well, yeah.
Isn't Mort dead?
Yeah, but like it's
so it's a term
sort of
that they use. Oh,
for,
I
like,
see.
taking a break or like time out.
Oh,
or
okay.
Dead air,
I just went by the literal French words,
yeah.
but I didn't. Oh, that's good. Cool.
The Tower, Quantum, Neutrino, Forlorn, and Catalepsy 2. That's the U.S. release. The 97 European record version of this included 2 bonus tracks, Embody and the aforementioned 21st Century Schizoid Man cover by the great King Crimson.
Yeah.
So, but nowadays, you know, in the digital world that we all inhabit, you go on iTunes or you know, Apple Music, and it'll have all 13 of these tracks on there. And so some of the additional musicians on here,
tell me about
Karen
those.
Crisis.
Oh,
vocals.
really?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I saw Crisis and Voivod play together.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. That seems like it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So Karen sang on Forlorn. She has some vocals on there. Jason Newsted, who later went on to join the band,
Yes.
played bass and did some vocals on Embody, which only appears on the European version of the record.
Yeah.
Ivan Dorashuk from Men Without Hats.
Oh, right. Because Away played with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did electronics on the tower. And one of the production guys, the mixers, James Cavaluzzo, he played electronics on a bunch of, just throughout the record.
Yeah.
He has some electronic keyboard synth stuff going on.
Yeah, there are some sort of funny, almost outdated keyboard sounds on that record.
Yeah.
Just a little bit here and there. Like I was listening to it the other day, and I was like, I almost thought I heard like a toy piano.
Could be.
Like it was almost like I was just sort of like, but you know, you leave it to Voivod to figure out what sound needs to be in there and to just make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like, and that blew my mind too, because like, you know, I mean, look, this is the 90s, okay? You know, and, you know, my experience in music, metal, you know, amphetamine reptile type noise rock stuff, you know, hardcore punk. Not a whole lot of stuff with keyboards. You know what I mean? Not a whole, like that whole like world, the combining of those things was outside of my wheelhouse at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I heard Neurosis. I've seen Neurosis prior to, you know, prior to hearing this record, I'd seen Neurosis. They had their version of electronics, which was like some brutal, like watching them perform live and dude playing with his fists, you know, and like, I'm like, okay, this is okay. Cause it's like, it's brutal and intense. You know what I mean? It's like, this is like, I accept this, you know, in my music with Neurosis. But then hearing the keyboard and electronics on this record, I was like, wow, this is like, once again, this is allowed. Like you're allowed to do this in metal. I'm like, wow, this is cool, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like a very pivotal thing for me because I was like very much, you know, absorbed by that. And from that point on, I was like, yeah, this is like an option, you know. I wasn't really exercising that option too much at the time, but it was like later on in my life, this become a big part of some of the stuff that I did creatively is like add these electronic sort of like flourishes.
Well, and especially to almost give you permission as a musician, right? It's like you look at people or bands that you idolize or whatever, and you see that they do something, and then, so later on, maybe you do use that.
Yeah.
Whereas you wouldn't have before. And I love that Voivod brings you into the more creative realm for yourself.
Yeah, it would be almost a full decade later for me to catch up to what this, you know, to allow myself to embrace this stuff. But still, it happened eventually.
Yeah.
You know. Do you have any standout tracks on this record?
Let me see your list.
I only have 2 songs on the list.
Oh, okay. But don't you have the
Oh, I have the whole track listing.
Yeah, you have the track listing because I haven't memorized it, but wow.
It's a hard one, right?
Yeah,
not an
it really
easy question to
is.
answer. There's so many good songs on the record.
I really like all of them. Quantum, Mercury, Rise, Phobos, and Bacteria.
That's like half the
written-
album.
I know it is. I'm sorry.
You can't decide though, right?
No, I can't decide. There's the beginning of Mercury always sounded like the Butthole Surfers to me.
Yeah, right?
Got that, like, but that's what I mean about like giving permission to do anything.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, whoa, hello, what's happening here? Like, oh, you know, and appreciating that stuff too. So I'm going to say Bacteria because I think to me, it's the nastiest song on the record. There's just something about, well, I think it's probably the most confrontational song on the record. it just had like, I just kind of remember sort of straightening up and then straightening up again and just being like, oh shit, oh man, like, whoa. And I like the flow of the record. I think it's put together really well, track by track. And they have that little sound that's in between every song. So there was a lot of care taken in the record to make sure that it was like a Voivod-like listening experience. I think that they added a lot of higher end stuff in post.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, you know, and I wonder, like, I really wonder what the conversation was, because like they make this record and they're like, oh, this is pretty dark. Oh shit. Like, because I don't know. I don't know if they felt that dark, like, you know, and whatever. But there's it seems to me that there's some like lightness added, like doing the little tracking in between the songs.
Yeah, tie it together.
And there are some, like, Piggy doesn't play a lot of his, what do you call it? Like the intonation or the
like tritone kind of.
Yeah, like ding ding, like that he does on like almost every record. He really doesn't do it in this record. It's mostly a lot of like chord stuff, and he still plays like dissonant sounds, but he doesn't sort of go off like a real De Kreutzeny sound. Ding ding, like that to me, that's almost interchangeable between those two bands. So I wonder if they added some of those higher effects, because there's a lot more effects here, and they're all higher notes, like just like bink bink, and I'm like, I wonder if they just felt they needed to pull that up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean that's,
and I could be completely wrong,
maybe.
Like absolutely, but that's what I hear, and I just like, it's such a different record. Like as a whole, it's just very heavy, and it's, you know, we've been saying it's a very dark record.
Yeah, and well, with Piggy's guitar playing, the thing I noticed immediately was just how it was like very a lot more like muted, single, like sort of chunkier chords.
Yes,
which wasn't really a trademark for them. Yeah, you know, they were exactly what you were saying. These kind of dissonant, you know, very, very angular kind of guitar playing. And this is like these muted, groovier, like there's like a groove, you know, like the song Phobos, you know what I mean? That's
a great song.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Phobos and Quantum are my two winners on this record. I mean, I love the entire album, but those are the two ones that I like, really dig those two, you know? Yeah, and there's a lot more, like, it's more laid back. Like, his guitar playing has like a lot of space to it. And, you know, and there's like some reverb and delay, and you know, which wasn't present on the earlier stuff so much.
Very much.
It allows like them the sort of notes to express more, you know, because of that. And those are like two, like my two selections for top tracks on this record. Did like whatever happened to Eric Forrest after this band?
I think that he did something called Project Falling Flesh. So I'm pretty sure he was in that, and I didn't fully investigate. So he got injured really badly in a van crash in Europe, and it was with Voivod.
Oh, so that might have been why he didn't continue with the band.
I think so. Yeah, I don't remember what happened, but I remember he was injured badly. So it was like either he like broke both legs, or had like a back injury. Like it was something that was pretty serious. And it was I know it was a van. And I don't think that anybody in Voivod was driving. I think in Europe, right, you usually get like a driver.
Yeah, I mean, actually, you always have a driver.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so some company like that you hire, they give you a guy, some Czech guy to drive you around usually.
Yeah. And so I don't know, and I don't really know. And the Project Falling Flesh thing, if I'm not mistaken, I do think that was his. I could be just completely wrong, but I think they were a little bit more like groove metal. And so I didn't go further listening, but that's the only thing that comes to me. So I was not prepared. I don't know. But yeah.
As we're recording this, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, you read the additional musicians on there, and I didn't know that Jason Newsted played on that. Yeah. So there was, you know, the timer may have already been set, like kind of like, well, you know, this is what's going to happen next, which, I mean, Voivod's development during that period, I mean, they just had to try different stuff, and especially with the loss of Snake, and then Snake came back. Yeah, I mean,
right.
there was just so much up and down, and you just can't really put yourself in somebody else's shoes like that and really guess why they did what they did. And so it's a really interesting slot in their trajectory.
Yeah, and this show, the way, I mean, when we do these classic records episodes, I didn't really have an agenda, but what it seems to be organically turning into is that outlier record for all these bands. You know what I mean? It's not like, when you think of classic records, you probably don't think of this record.
No,
Phobos.
No, not at all.
When you think of a classic Sabbath record, you don't think of Heaven and Hell, right?
Right.
You know? Same thing with Maiden. You don't think of, some I do, but you don't think of Killers necessarily. You might think of a Bruce Dickinson record.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe,
yeah.
Right. So this record, this whole thing is turning into like the classic outlier records for bands that, like for bands basically.
Yeah, they're records that shouldn't be ignored just because maybe they weren't popular or they were in a weird period. And,
I mean, like eventually we probably will get around to doing, like Rain and Blood by Slayer,
right.
or something like that. But it's like right now, for example, one of the episodes that we're talking about doing is Black Flag In My Head, which is my favorite Black Flag record, but everyone hates that album. Everyone just totally dismisses that record.
Yeah.
So I put this Phobos record. I mean, I don't know where you land on that record particularly, but
it was a really long time since I've listened to Phobos. So, and I'm really glad that you suggested Phobos because, like, cool, I get to listen to Phobos. Yeah. It's not my go-to record, and it's a really great record.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was I thought, oh my God, it's been so long since I listened to it. Will I I thought I wasn't gonna remember it. Not really, but then, as I'm listening, I'm like, I've heard these songs a million times. I definitely played the crap out of this record.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, oh, I remember this and I put it down or whatever. It was like, there was a lot of stuff going on and I probably played it a whole lot. And then at some point I just didn't play it anymore, and it's been a while. But, I was totally stoked. Listen, anytime I get to talk about Voivod, that's a good day.
What was your entry point with the band?
They had a track on Metal Massacre, whatever number it was, and that's before they got signed to Metal Blade, And then when I went to the World War III Fest, War and Pain was out, but Roar was not out, and they were actually selling their unmixed versions of Roar on cassette, which I have.
Damn.
Yeah. So my entry point was from the get-go.
From the get-go, yeah.
Yeah, and they're kind of cartoony, right? So it's I love almost all types of aggressive music.
Yeah.
And there's something about the artwork and the science fiction that really just spoke to me much more in a way. Right away they were very special for me. I have a Voivod tattoo. I only have 3 or 4 band tattoos. I have a Voivod tattoo. And when I was on FMU and even on my Gimme show, every single program I have, I play Voivod. I don't miss Voivod.
The Wake is good.
The Wake is great.
Yeah, that's still a great album. It's an excellent record.
And I think now, so they've been through, so we started off with their era of sort of maybe not missteps, because none of their records are bad, but they went, after the break of the core 4, and then they went to the Eric Forrest 3, and then Jason Newsted was in the band, and then Piggy, we lost Piggy.
We lost him. Yeah.
And then they decided to continue, and Chewy, Damon Grain joined, and then Blackie came back, and then Blackie is gone. Now they have, I think that they're finally settled again.
Yeah.
I think that, and it's taken a while, but they've done the work. They've put the hours in, and they've really seen what works, what doesn't work, and who's staying and who's not. And so it's Away and Snake and 2 guys that are a little bit younger and a little bit, and newer to Voivod fans, but The Wake is a great record.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
it brings me back to, to Nothing Face or to Dimension, like in that era, maybe a little bit before. But yeah, like I'm so stoked because I feel like they now have it again.
Yeah.
For them, and they were still just working on it all that time. Yeah.
Now, at the time we're recording this, they're playing here in New York next week. Oddly, while you're listening to this, the show will have happened already.
Yes.
That's
but
just,
I'm still excited.
But I'm really excited, and you're going to the show next. Obviously,
absolutely.
You are.
Yes.
And that's with Yob and Ammon Ra.
I know.
And you guys will be hearing my interview with Colin before this episode comes out.
Yes. But I'm letting Colin go before me.
Yeah, I mean, this is the weird time warp of technology that we live in these days.
Yes.
This like very Matrix-like time expansion and contraction that allows us to do these sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I'm excited too. I haven't seen Voivod in a while. It's been a few years, and what a great opportunity to see them with two other great bands.
Oh my God, what a great bill. Yeah. What a great tour.
And it's a cool venue too. I mean, Warsaw isn't necessarily the best sounding venue.
Yeah, I don't like the sound in Warsaw.
But I like going there.
But I'll probably be up front, so who cares?
Yeah, I like going there though. It has it's like, it reminds me of like 20 years ago maybe.
Yeah.
In New York. It doesn't remind me of like New York now.
Mm-hmm.
But it has this like, it's like this cool like building, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's big.
It's
big.
It
fits a lot
There's
of
like
people.
You can get pierogies there. It's got this like kind of like.
I'm only going for the pierogies.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna conceal that anymore. But it almost feels like you're going to see a show at almost like a VFW hall in some ways. You know what I mean? But it's this really nice room. Really nice interior. But it has this like. It's almost like you're not supposed to be there to see a show like this, because there's like, it has this very Polish vibe to it of like, once again, the pierogies, and it's in a cool area. And I don't know, I've seen Neurosis there. I've seen Godflesh there. I went to one of those garage, that little Steven thing with I saw the Electric Prunes play there.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's like a very cool spot and a great show. And it's coming in less than a week.
That's right. Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah.
The last time I saw Voivod was, I think, in Pennsylvania, like 2 years ago. Like, I drove out to Lancaster when they were on tour with Vector.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
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 And Rocky was playing bass with them. I didn't meet him, but yeah, it was pretty. Anytime Voivod is near, it's a good day.
I'm trying to remember what it was for me, because I know that they made me uncomfortable for many years when I was a kid.
Really?
Because of I'll explain.
Yeah.
Back in the day, when I was growing up in the suburbs, my parents used to get the New York Post. Okay. Mm-hmm. And in the back of the Post, they would have they have listings for like the Ritz and CBGBs and stuff. And I want to say that it was the Ritz. They had a listing for Voivod playing there. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I was in high school, and I was like trying to find out about everything I possibly could about underground, punk rock, hardcore, weird metal bands. Mm-hmm. And, there really wasn't a lot of ways to find out about things unless it was a tactile world. Like, you had to put your hands on stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
There was like Trash American Style in Danbury, where I used to go there.
Oh, yeah.
And Malcolm's a friend. Malcolm was on my other podcast as a guest. Mm-hmm. I should have him come on this one to talk about a classic record, maybe.
Absolutely. Oh my God, he's the record guy.
Maybe like an anti-scene record or something, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you needed to get your hands dirty back then. So anyway, I'm looking. Oh yeah, CBGBs, man. Someday I'm gonna go there and I'll see like Agnostic Front. Someday I'm gonna go there and maybe I'll see one of these like Nuclear Assault or something like that. You know what I mean? L'Amour's like, what's this place all about?
Oh yeah.
And then I saw like they had a photograph of this band Voivod for the Ritz, and I was looking at these guys with this crazy weird haircut. And I'm like, are these punks or metal guys? Like I couldn't really,
Right.
because I'd seen, that episode of Quincy that had the metal heads in it, or the punks rather, the punk rockers.
Punks, yes.
And I was like, I've seen this on TV, like these guys with the crazy haircuts.
That's funny.
So I'm like, I don't know if I like this band because I like punk, but I also kind of like Slayer, you know what I mean? So I went to the mall and there was a record store there and I looked for the Voivod and they had these weird album covers. And I remember I was also a big fan of the Heavy Metal magazine.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And the artist Mobius was in there. Mm-hmm. He had a bunch of like Arzak and like all these different characters. And his artwork made me uncomfortable too because but I love Mobius, but it was like, there's something just inhuman about it. There was something very dystopian. I felt like it was this weird projection into a possible future that it was coming just a few years down the line. And that was the same feel I got when I was seeing Away's artwork.
Yes.
I'm like, there's this inhuman melding of man and machine that might only be a few years away. And the artwork was like, it was the same, like in a way when I would see pictures of Motorhead, I was like, these are bad people, man. Like when I was like 14 years old or whatever, I'm like, man, I don't know if I want to be associated with these guys. Look at them. They look dangerous, I mean, obviously.
But so what was your tipping point then?
It was just a curiosity about what the fuck this band sounded like.
Yeah.
And I was like,
yeah.
I gotta find out like what this band is about.
You were intrigued.
I was intrigued by it.
Yes.
So I don't know it wasn't like the new album that I got. It was like I went back because Warren Payne just happened to be in the record store.
Well,
And I was like, and that's a great album.
And that cover, like if you're looking at that cover and you're a kid, it's like, whoa, this is like, and it's like hand painted.
Yes.
So it's sort of like there's a real humanity right there. It's not a photograph. It's not sort of this made up thing. It's like, wow, this came out of somebody's brain.
Yeah. And that's what scared me a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I was not as free then as I am now, obviously.
Yeah.
When I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was still figuring all this stuff out. And the fact that it did have this sci-fi, like, Korgul, like Voivod, vampiric overlord vibe to it. It was like that context drew me in as well. Mm-hmm. And that got the hooks in me when I heard the record.
Yeah.
And then, those early records really big for me. Dimension Atros was a great, them covering Pink Floyd, a band that I loved as a kid prior to my explorations into punk rock music. Mm-hmm. That was a band that I really enjoyed. And them picking a song that was like more obscure, because at the time of me being a young man getting into Pink Floyd prior to my punk rock excursion, The Wall, like that was like those are the big records, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But Astronomy Domine was the Syd Barrett song, or something that was like more obscure, and I was like, oh, these guys are like, they're weird, they're interesting, they have like some other thing going on that I didn't really know how to like process at the time, you know what I mean? And then Nothing Face came out, and that's when I finally saw them, was on that tour.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was 89, I think, and it was Nothing Face was out, and it was Soundgarden, Voivod, and Faith No More.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's when it was like the deal had been sealed with me being a fan of Voivod.
Easy.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, not that many, I don't know, I guess bands do a lot of covers, but I always felt that Voivod were real music fans because of the songs that they covered.
Yep.
And then they covered the Batman theme on Angel Rat, I think.
Angel Rat, yeah.
And so I was like, no, they're cartoon fans too. Like there was everything just sort of, to me, brought out humanity, and I felt like I got to know them because of what they chose, and I happened to really like all of the covers, for the most part. So I was like, oh wow, that's cool, I like that too. And in a way, I think doing a cover for any band, and I think people have called it like a money grab before, like, oh well, yeah, they're just doing that cover because it's like a money grab. But if if they're really trying to do a song justice because they're fans, it then also gives fans another place to relate to you from.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, too, it's like now, from my perspective at least, you know, they covered Pink Floyd and King Crimson.
Yeah.
Two very unmetal bands. Okay? In that time.
But very foundational for heavy music or for really accomplished music. Right?
But that's what I mean, though, is like yes, all those types of bands, they weren't very metal, but it also gave me the green light to be like, yeah, I used to like these bands before I discovered punk rock, and I had to like only listen to like, you know, GBH and stuff like that.
Right.
But it sort of created a bridge between, you know, the King Crimson records, you know, Pink Floyd records, and modern music for me, you know. And these might just be my own personal biases I'm talking about, but it's like, you know, it was like it kind of like bridged this gap and made me think like, oh, you know, this is all this stuff kind of informs each other, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah. Well, listen, the first time I saw Mastodon, I thought that they were the perfect combination of Neurosis and King Crimson.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God! Like, I was flipping my lid.
Yeah.
You know, and that was like really when they only had a demo or maybe not even anything out, you know.
Yeah, that was like my favorite era of the band, actually.
Yeah.
It was like back the demo, and there was that 7-inch they had on Reptilian Records. That actually is probably my favorite stuff by them, is that 7-inch. It's pretty cool.
They cover Emerald on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Thin Lizzy track.
Yeah. Yes.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, there you go. It's a band covering, and then you get an insight into what that band's about.
Right.
Know? I think Voivod also covered the Nile song, too.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is another great Pink Floyd track. You know.
Yeah, it's very telling that they did 2 Pink Floyd covers, you know, out of the handful that they did. And you can hear, I think, and I'm not a guitar player, so maybe you can sort of give your opinion on that, but Piggy's playing and like effects and sort of, I mean, he's got this whole sort of spacey vibe.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all about Pink Floyd.
Yeah, David Gilmour, I think.
Yeah.
You know, even though they covered songs that were in the Syd Barrett era, I think, to me personally, everyone loves to say they love Syd Barrett, but I love David Gilmour actually more than Syd Barrett.
Yeah.
I think he really pushed the band forward.
Well, he certainly did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and his guitar style too is like way more like creative, I think, in a lot of ways. You know. Yeah. So that's Phobos by Voivod.
Yes, it is.
Before we sign off, you want to talk about your podcast?
So I have a podcast called Peer Pressure, and that's associated with WFMU. And I've been on WFMU for over 30 years, and over that period of time, I've interviewed over 200 people. So I'm taking those interviews and I'm reworking them and making them a little bit more podcast friendly. I am still cutting up songs because there's a lot of like guest DJ stuff in there, but we talk about music, you know, like this. I mean, sometimes it's weird to have a radio show where you talk about music, but you can't play the music because of the rights and things, such as stuff. You know, podcasts are. But yeah, so I am reworking those, and they can be found. It's sometimes listed under Diane's Kamikaze Fun Machine, but if you looked up Diane Podcasts WFMU, I'm sure you would find them. And I think that my interview with you, I think I haven't gotten to it yet. I'm sort of saving certain interviews for, especially since I know that you were angry.
Oh,
I'll go back in there. But yeah, Mike and I spoke a long time ago, and you know, Toombs has been on my radio show live in the past.
Yep.
And
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, I remember before we came to do that show that all of my equipment got destroyed, and like I was playing through like secondary stuff when I played.
Really?
Yeah, like
I don't
blew
think I knew that.
up. Like the amp I still to this day play. Just the tubes got crushed and the thing blew up, and like that was the day we left to go on tour.
Oh my God.
And I played that entire tour with like amps that I just had that I never used in heavy music.
Wow.
Yeah, they were like these
There's
like
a test.
these like Fender, amps and stuff like that. And I had to use like distortion pedals to make it sound like heavy, or whatever.
Yeah. But
So
that's you. You're dedicated. You'll make it work.
Got to.
Yeah.
The show must go on, man.
Absolutely.
This is show business we're talking about here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm excited. That's on iTunes and everything.
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And your Gimme Radio show.
Yes.
Is Lifer.
And my website is rockerforlife.com.
What kind of stuff can we find in there? Is it a portal to all this stuff?
It sort of is like you can go to rockerforlife.com and there's links to my podcast and links to Gimme. And then I blog, I post things like I went in February, I guess it was, I went on that 70,000 tons of metal cruise. And
How was that? Was that fun?
It's amazing.
It sounds like it's a lot of fun.
It's ridiculously fun. Like it's just, I highly recommend it. There's, even though like half the bands this year were sort of like forest metal, they were kind of like folk metal. And I'm like, what happens when I listen to 5 folk metal bands in a row, I end up picking one out that I like better than the others, but not as much as I like regular metal, kind of thing. So I can adapt. But I did I got to interview the guys from Onslaught, from Sodom, I talked to John Gallagher from Raven for a really long time. I talked to Barney from Napalm Death, and it's like being at a festival. It is a festival. It's, 4 days, 5 days long, 60 bands. Each band plays twice because there's 4 venues on the boat. And each band plays like a regular full set, like 45 minutes to like an hour and a half, depending on who it is. Like Accept played, played twice. Like Obituary was there and God Dethroned and it was. But the best thing is that there's no such thing as like backstage. So you're like eating, and you're like, oh, there goes such and such from whatever band. And, I remember the first, so this is the third one I've been on. They've done 9. And I went to number 1 and number 2, and then I went to this one. And, you can go up to the salad bar and be like, oh, what are you eating? And looking at, I try not to be a jerk, but usually I can tell people I want to interview them and be nice and, that kind of thing. And it's just, there is a real feeling of community on the boat. It's very cool. I've gone alone most of the time and it's not really a problem. And, I love festivals, but I don't really enjoy getting rained on and getting totally. Muddy. Yeah. And so, a cruise ship is luxury. So you have your bunk is no more than a 5-minute walk. Cool. I was taking power naps and then I was going upstairs and eating steak. And then I was going in the steam room and then going to go see a band.
That's killer.
That's the thing. And the first time I went, I thought, oh my God, this is crazy. People are going to be puking all over the place and they're going to be destroying shit. But it's not cheap. So the level of, you have to be a semi-responsible person to afford to be able to do it.
It's not like savages,
and people appreciate what they have. So it's so much fun. It really, really is so much fun. I would, I'll have a conversation with you off mic about it further if you're really into it kind of, but it's very welcoming and it's all metal and everybody on the boat is there for that. It's not like some cruises have bands, but it's there's this many people for the band cruise or one band plays. This is the bands just play constantly.
So at 5 a.m, you can go and see a band if you
I think they stop at 5 a.m.
They stop at 5.
Yeah, they're they're finished. They're completed by 5 or maybe 4 on some of the nights, but they start at 11 a.m. or 10:30, and then they go. Every so often you see it's wow. I think God Dethroned played. They had a 2:30 in the morning set on one of the schedules. I was just oh man, I am not going to make that, but then they played another time.
Though, back in the day, seeing shows at the Ritz, sometimes bands would go on at 1:30 in the morning.
Oh yeah. I'm really glad that's changed.
Oh yeah, I don't think I'd make it now.
I know, me too. Yeah. But that's it. I mean, anything for the music, it's like you kind of just, you do what you got to do to keep that going. And I've always just been about making sure I see the band, making sure I support the band, and that kind of thing. And that's just what really matters a lot to me, and now it's like I have always really appreciated being on radio, whether it's terrestrial radio or Gimme, in terms of being able to, talk to people in bands and have people listen to what they have to say, and be able to relate to them better. Because I know that my fascination and my love for music came for being able to relate to music when I was a kid, in some way, as either an outlet or feeling like it was comfortable or an ally. And it's important for people to be able to feel like they're not alone, and I think that's what music provides, and whether it's you're in a band and you're working with a team, or you're playing something and you're getting it out there to other people, it's the most important thing in the world.
Well, thanks for joining us, Diane.
Thank you for having me. And, this was so much fun.
No, we should do it again. I'm like, one of the things we're trying to do is have different people involved in this aspect of the show. Like a nice recurring cast of people. Mm-hmm. That I enjoy talking to. Yeah. We can talk about interesting things. Mm-hmm. I got Jay Bennett coming on.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we're going to do a Guns N' Roses one.
Nice.
For Appetite for Destruction.
Oh, good.
Randy from Cable started it with him.
Oh, nice.
Doing these classic records, and Randy's coming back at some point. I got a bunch of different people lined up, and we should do it again.
Yeah, we absolutely should. Thank you so much for inviting me. This has really been fun. And when you had originally said, like, oh, yeah, we'll talk about Phobos, it was like, for an hour, we're going to talk about one record. I had no idea how it was going to go. So you've made it really enjoyable. It's really cool. Yeah. So much fun. Thanks.
Thanks for listening, everyone. You can catch me on Gimme Radio with my show called The Sacred and Profane. And I'm not as good at DJing as Diane over here is.
True.
You'll find all kinds of stuff on there. Some stuff you might not like, and some stuff you might enjoy. But I just kind of play what I like. And it always tends to be on the darker side of things.
Yay.
And that's it. So everyone go home. You've been listening to Metal Matters, a Gimme Radio podcast. We'll be back next week, so be sure to subscribe and never miss out. Also, be sure to check out Gimme Radio via web, iOS, or Android for one of the best metal communities in the world, exclusive interviews and merch, and so much more. We were in Jersey today, actually. We went to the Menlo Park Mall.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know exactly where that is, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I bought a jacket and some shoes.
Nice.
Yeah. I like Jersey. We practice in New Jersey.
Yeah, you told me. Yeah.
In Keansburg, and then on the 1st, we're moving to a spot in Keyport. So,
cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 45 minutes.
Yeah, it's like near the shore. I mean, it's
beautiful. I love it down there.
Yeah.
It's not, like the cutthroat Brooklyn world of rehearsal spaces where,
True.
It's a nicer, more mellow vibe.
So you have it's the band's rehearsal space? That's
it's
so
a
good.
monthly, I mean,
yeah.
For years, when the band was more centralized in Brooklyn, we had a spot in Brooklyn, but it was like the biggest pain in the ass, headache. Like, you always had the feeling that somebody was going to buy the building and you'd shut it down at any given time. You know what I mean? That's how things go here. Yeah. But now the band is, there's still 2 guys that live in the city, in one of the 5 boroughs, Brooklyn and Queens. The other 2 members live down in New Jersey, and the space is there. Right. And they've had that spot for a while.
Oh, so they had it anyway.
Yeah. 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 It's always
That's
like
good.
the drummer who has the space.
Of course. Yeah, of course it is.
And it's just a better vibe. Even the travel, like we park the van there, we could leave our cars there.
You can probably leave it right in front of the door.
Yeah, like a month. I parked my van there for like a month at least. Well, in one case, almost 2 months.
Really?
Yeah, because like the landlord's like, oh, it's these guys. It's the guys. It's cool. Stay.
Yeah.
You can leave it here. No one's gonna bother you.
Yeah.
You know, because that's here. Obviously,